The resurgence of McLaren as a brand has brought us some really interesting products. And today we're going to be focusing on this, the 2020 McLaren GT. But more so, we're going to be focusing on how did we get here? How did we start with the MP4-12C and end up with this, their newest product, the daily driver supercar, the GT? And as always, I want to make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Our story begins in 2011 with the release of this, the original MP4-12C, and while it arrived to do competition with the likes of the Ferrari 458 Italia, it proved that not only could it be a supercar, but it could also be a very comfortable car. Under the hood lived a 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8 with just shy of 600 horsepower, and it cemented the return of McLaren as a brand and gave us a ton to look forward to. In 2013, McLaren followed up the 12C with the introduction of one of the greatest hypercars ever, the P1. Under the hood lived a similar version of the 3.8-liter V8 found in the 12C, albeit with major modifications and the addition of an electric motor. Power sat at just over 900 horsepower and just 375 P1s were ever made. Now, it also marked the beginning of McLaren's Ultimate Series, and for the purpose of this video, we're going to be focusing on the Super Series and the Sport Series that more closely relate to the brand new GT that we're featuring today. 2014 marked the arrival of the 12C's replacement, the 650S, and although it received plenty of criticism for looking kind of like a mini P1, it actually meant that McLaren took a lot of what they learned from their hypercar and then transferred some of it to their road cars, which helped the overall brand improve and move up as a performance manufacturer. The arrival of the 570S shortly thereafter marked the beginning of the brand's Sport Series, or the more affordable entry level into the brand. Now, even though it was the more affordable McLaren, it didn't mean that it was less of a McLaren because it still had the same 3.8-liter V8 as the 650S and the 12C, albeit with a different state of tune. McLaren then decided to move closer into performance with the introduction of the 675 LT, with the LT standing for long tail, which paid homage to some of the older McLaren long tail models such as the F1 long tail. 675 LT was more than just a tuned up 650S, and it showed that McLaren was willing to battle the Ferrari 458 Speciale. Now, other than being a special edition, 675 LT marked the end of the 650S 675 LT line and the beginning of the replacement, the 720S. The 720S arrived in 2017 and marked a clear departure from the McLaren we had known up to this point. Gone were the soft lines of the 650S and the 675, and instead we got a ton of radical aerodynamic designs. Intakes absolutely everywhere, headlights that were basically see-through, and a whole lot more. Aside from that, the 720S got a 4-liter V8 producing over 700 horsepower, which allowed it to reach 60 miles an hour in under 3 seconds. While it was by no means an uncomfortable supercar, the 720S was the most hardcore of the actual sports series we had seen up to this point, because no other car had had performance that would match this one, and it showed that McLaren was more than invested in becoming the very, very best in the segment. Now, the 570S was not going to be left behind, and eventually it got its own LT model dubbed the 600 LT. And like with the 675 LT, the 600 LT was more powerful and more capable than any other 570S on the market. Now, although its replacement has not been announced, the arrival of the LT should mark that we should see a replacement to the 570S in the near horizon. And if the 600 LT is anything to go by, it should be pretty spectacular. Which brings us to the 2020 McLaren GT we've been driving this week. And this car aims to be the daily driver supercar. And while previous McLarens have definitely been comfortable enough to drive on a daily basis, this GT makes it its sole purpose to not only be savagely fast, but also comfortable. Now, after talking about so many LT models on the 720S, it might seem a little bit weird that McLaren would go perhaps a softer route, but upon closer inspection, it makes a whole lot of sense. Because if you already offer hardcore versions of supercars, why not go the other direction as well and utilize the technology developed over the last decade or so to potentially capture a new segment of the market? a person that wants a supercar but without the supercar drawbacks. Not long after the release of the GT, McLaren decided to double down on its performance lineup with the introduction of the 765 LT. And just like other LT models before, the 765 is the most hardcore version of the 720S available. Aside from being a hardcore version of the 720S, the 765 LT shows that McLaren is capable of building a hardcore supercar along with a comfortable supercar as well, meaning that they can take the technology and everything they've developed over the past decade and apply it to all sides of the market, making them incredibly versatile. So if McLaren's track record is anything to go by, their future is going to be very, very bright. And I love the fact that now they're offering us the daily driver supercar as well as the hotter, spicier cars such as the 720S and the 600 LT. And now with the release of the 765 LT, we're going to see even more advancement of that side of the brand. Either way, McLaren seems to be going places and we love what they're doing. And as always, I want to thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.